Welcome in, everybody, to the Power Option Podcast. Just running the damn ball from west to east. Here again for week 8 with my co-host, Garrett. How are you?
Oh man, I'm good. It was a week of a handful of really tight, interesting games. Did we learn a lot? Probably not, but it was a good week of football.
Yeah, it really was. Now, I don't want to get on a huge tangent here. I know we didn't talk about this prior to the recording, but I do want to get your general thoughts. Does the sign stealing situation that's happening at Michigan that we're learning about, does it really matter? Like baseball, they're stealing signs. I'm not saying they're stealing them, but like it's a regularly practiced thing. Like, how much does it really matter?
I've been back and forth on it because I've been paying a lot of attention about how people are speaking about this. Right, there is two things that are happening. I think it's the truest thing. There's one thing that's happening saying, "Hey, Michigan's fans, this is not nothing." Like, if you get caught doing something like this, there should be a penalty.
Yeah.
But I also agree with the people that are saying, yeah, sign stealing, it's just like, you still got to line up and play. Like Dion said, you got to line up and play. Your job as a team is to make it so that people can't just steal your signs and people can't do that. And you should still have the ability to play better. But I think when you're a team as quality of Michigan and you're playing teams that are less the quality, having that an advantage turns into a big advantage. So I don't know. I'm not in the camp where I want to say burn them down. Like, the matter of fact, the only reason that I would even care that they're getting it is because Harbaugh is such a big, like, oh, everybody's cheating, we're unlike these cheaters. So he's a big pussy about it.
Right.
And so I want to see him get his by just doing some stupid bullshit. But other than that, if it was somebody else, I'd just say, okay, give him a little bit of a slap on the wrist. It's fine. Move on.
Yeah, I'm in that. I think that's a good way to say it. Like, especially with the comment about you still got to play the game, just because I mean, there's like even something like play action, which is sort of when play action's running well, you're kind of deceiving the defense and otherwise. You've really established the run game. Shout out T. Chase. And so then the defense has to react to a situation where, like, you don't know if the ball's going to get handed off or not. And so you still have to respect it. And as I was growing up playing football, as I'm sure many of the listeners, there was always that comment of, like, don't cheat, make sure you stay true to the position that you're doing, make sure that you're staying true to your objectives as one player inside of the offense or defense that you're with. So, like, just because you know something about somebody, or you might be able to, doesn't necessarily mean that you should react purely based on that. You could be getting tricked. You could be getting double tricked. So that's kind of why I thought about it and why I was bringing it up, because as I've honestly read very little about it. In my mind, it doesn't matter. I don't even know if Michigan's good or not. Like, it's still yet to be decided. And so like, I don't know if it's a big deal. I think, to your other point about Harbaugh, like, fuck him, because he's always like, oh, we could do whatever, and we're not like those other guys. We keep a true thing, and that's silly. Like, come on now, Harbaugh. So, you're at the biggest school in the world.
Honestly, I honestly care more about the Harbaugh-ness of it all than I care about the cheating.
Yeah.
I care more about the fact that you are the guy that absolutely cannot get caught in bullshit like this, with the way you cry and whine and complain and talk about how clean your program is. Like, this is bullshit. Like, even if it's not a big deal, you know how bad it looks.
Right.
How it's going to look to every other fan base in the country. Like, I saw today that they're talking about maybe taking Michigan off the betting books because of this.
Oh.
Like, that's something that'll look, again, no matter how bad it is, that looks really serious.
Right.
And so the NCAA is probably going to have to come down hard, because they can't say, look, we can't have Vegas putting the integrity of it in question. Now, obviously, Vegas is its own problem because they're creating reasons for people to want to get advantages anyway. Right. So I'm not giving Vegas a clear path on being the moral high ground here, but it's certainly got consequences, and the consequences could be enough that you've got to do something about it, even if the actual crime isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. And so I think I really hope that something something happens that this doesn't end up being like a real, just a really soft slap on the wrist. Like I hope it's, and I don't even know, again, because I don't really care that much, and I don't know how big of a deal it is. But it seems like if nothing happens to them, and if Vegas saying no, we're going to get you off the books, like that's significant. Or the NCAA does something. I hope that something happens, because there needs to be. I would hate for a program like Michigan, so in the real foundation of college football throughout the ages, like for them to get away scot-free is the most 1%ers, we can do whatever we want precedent that would be set, and it's just, and that would be frustrating, at least, even though I don't know if how much the punishment really matters, or how big of a deal this is overall. But I do hope that there's something.
Yeah, maybe vacate some wins. And you take away a handful of scholarships or something, something tangible that just says, look, you can't blatantly cheat, even if it's not a big deal, but not like anything that really matters. Like the scholarships are going to matter, so that does matter. But if you do like 5 or something, like it's just like you lost some wins, and here's a small token of look, doesn't matter. We don't think it's enough to derail your season, but we do think it's enough that you should have some actual consequences that might cost you a win down the road. I think that would be fine.
Yeah, good. Well, it's interesting, so I want to throw that out there before we got into these games.
Sure. No, that's super interesting. Let's look at the week that was... week 8?
Yeah,
week 8.
Yep.
Like we're a week away from CFP standings.
Yep. It happens as fast as it always does.
It goes by quick,
I
man.
know. It always does.
Yep.
It always goes by
quick.
so fast.
Yeah, because we're always that's what's so nice kind of about what we do, and so nice about even the expanded playoff will be nice, is that we always get to the point where it's just like, okay, we're building up to something. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, we're halfway through the season. If we're building up to something, it means we're ignoring results that happened already.
Right.
And I would rather have more results that matter and not be so worried about teams being undefeated. As much as I love the undefeated barrier, I think that was good for what college football was. But I think it's okay now with trying to get more competitive teams opportunities that, we can have games that matter more early, but it's okay if a team loses it. It won't eliminate them from the chance of playing for a championship.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's look at games. The first game we're going to look at, there is early week. So we got to this position where we got early week Conference USA and early week Sun Belt happening with some occasional other things sprinkled in. So in your Conference USA, you're basically your 3 best teams. Your 3 best teams maybe played. I think probably, but one of them can't. One of them can't play in your conference championship, so they don't get to count. But the first one is that Liberty survives at home against Middle Tennessee State. 42-35. Jacksonville State wins a close game against Western Kentucky at home, 20-17, and also New Mexico State wins at UTEP to put them at 3-1 in the conference, 5-3. They're having a nice season. They just won tonight, as a matter of fact, too. We've got some quality stuff happening. FIU, that was their first Conference USA win, but they beat San Jose State, who is now the team that's got a good chance for not winning a game, even though I think they'll get one.
You said you meant Sam Houston.
Oh, sorry, yes, Sam Houston, not San Jose. Yeah, thank you. Sam Houston, who's 0-7. So that's our early chunk of Conference USA games. Do you have anything you want to talk about on these ones?
Those, it's pretty... nothing huge, These games it was nice to have some early week, appetizers, to be able to watch games like these ones, but nothing super exciting here. Unfortunate for Sam Houston that they got they're still over, and hope maybe they'll find a way to get a win the remainder of the season. I don't know how likely that is. The Jacksonville State Western Kentucky game, just fun. I wasn't watching it in time, but just seeing some of the highlights. It was a little bit closer. It was kind of nice. So I know I said it a bunch, and I'm going to say it again tonight a bunch. The Sun Belt. I love watching me some Sun Belt football, but this was been a nice week for the Conference USA where there was some stuff happening that was really, really interesting. Liberty's the one who can't play, right?
No, Liberty can.
Oh,
Liberty's
Jacksonville
good.
State can't.
Jacksonville State and
Right.
Sam Houston couldn't play.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not a problem for Sam Houston, but
Yeah, and Liberty is very interesting as like another Group 5 as compared to James Madison. James Madison can't do anything at the end of their season, but like
Right.
it's kind of cool that we have two, a 7-0 Liberty's Conference USA team and a 7-0 James Madison Sun Belt team that kind of bubble into the top. So it's cool. I think the Conference USA it's a fun little conference. It's not hitting those bangers like the Sun Belt does for me, but I still like to pop into these games. These were some good ones, especially to start the week.
well, yeah, Liberty and New Mexico State won tonight, so Liberty is now 8-0, and New Mexico State 6-3 and 4-1 in conference. Western Kentucky slips to 2-2, and their title game hopes are fading rather quickly. So Conference USA is still everything to play for at the top. I mean, you're going to get a rematch. There's no division, so you get a rematch, but. New Mexico State has a good shot at it. Let's see, do they play Liberty still? They already lost to Liberty, but they do still have Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State, so they certainly have a chance for a few losses on the coming up. But it'll be interesting at the top of Conference USA. We also had some early week American and some early week Sun Belt. South Alabama beats Southern Miss 55-3. South Alabama at home. James Madison goes to 7-0 against Marshall on the road, and in the AAC, Rice beats the crap out of Tulsa. Rice is 4-3, and they won 42-10. And SMU blew out Temple 55-0 at Temple. Temple is a sad program that I don't understand why is so sad.
I don't think there's. I feel like Temple has always been sad. It's
yeah, but they've had a couple, like when Al Golden was there before he went to Miami. They were good for a little bit. Somebody else had them pretty decent for a little while.
Oh, really? You feel like? Yeah, maybe there was one time when I was young. I was watching. They had like a little thing on Temple. ESPN did it, and it was like just a little like here's the school and that kind of stuff, and they were showing them because they play. I don't know if they still play where the Eagles play. I think that they do.
Yeah, they did. They moved to the link.
Yeah. And it was just such a sad sight. There was like 8 people in the crowd in this giant stadium, and they were getting beat, and it was just a sad story. And I feel like that's always the heartbeat of Temple football, which is a bummer, but it is what it is.
Matt Rule went 10-4 there.
Oh, all right.
Steve Adazio went 9-4. Al Golden went 8-4 and 9-4. So they had a run from 2009. Then they had a couple of down years, and then they picked it back up. They had a run from 2009 to 2019 where they were good all of those years, but 2.
Wow.
3. I mean, they were 500, bad 500. But they had a couple golden years. But yeah, between that time from 1991 to 2008, they had nothing going for them. And since they were good in 2019, they've fallen back to the depths again. But it just feels like they should be better. Like, there's been enough people that have gotten some decent success out of them that you'd think that they could put something together, but they don't.
Yeah, and they are also in that part of the country where, like in my mind, and this is just purely my own bias, that like I feel like the American is kind of a nice conference for them. It almost feels a little bit too big for them in some ways. I mean, I guess I can't say that because the bottom 4 are UAB, Eastern Carolina, Charlotte. So it's not like the American is running away with all these great teams or anything. But it seems like Temple should be like a Conference USA or whatever. But because they're up there, up there in the Northeast, and they're in a good spot, they're going to be around a lot of other teams and situations that kind of puts them a little bit higher. So it's possible that somebody could, I'm not saying that Temple's going to get a Deion Sanders, but it's a type of school and in an area, in Philadelphia, and a very well-renowned school for the academics, and I think I'm sure it costs quite a bit of money to go there, so they could probably scrounge up some for football. I think that it might be a cultural thing, a school cultural thing that they're just like, it is what it is. But
Philadelphia's not a haven for football, right? And so I kind of get it. Certainly better for basketball. But you'd think that they could. I mean, you'd think that they could at least hang with Rutgers.
Yeah, that's what.
Right?
And
You
that's
think
what
that
I
they
mean.
could be about Rutgers, but Temple was like in the MAC for a while, and they weren't very good. Like they've been all over the place, and they haven't been great.
Yeah. See,
So-
and honestly, it
but
makes
I
more
just don't
sense. It makes more sense to me
I
that
don't
they're
understand
on
it only because they've been good. Like, why haven't they been able to sustain being good? They're the only option that there are there.
It's very true. And you think you'd be able to dip into some recruiting like northern, upstate New York and Maryland. Like there's kids coming out of there that are doing stuff that I'm sure that you could get to go to Temple, and depending on this coach, I don't know. Maybe we'll see a new age Deion Sanders go to Temple, and all of a sudden Temple.
I don't even think you have to be that good.
Awesome.
I mean, I think you just have to be Al Golden. You don't even have to be great. You can be, Steve Adagio, who's not that great, did well there for a few years. Matt Rule took his little quick stop there and built something that he's probably going to be building in Nebraska.
Right.
It seems like there's enough tools if you got somebody and you just want them to stay there. They must not pay people. That must be the deal. Considering their conference affiliation, I get it, but that's got to be the issue.
Yeah, and that's also what I was saying earlier too. It's like I think maybe it's just a cultural thing that they're just like, it is what it is. Like, we're gonna play football. We're big enough to play FBS football, but that's all we care to do.
Yeah. That's fine. All right. Well, anyway. SMU very good, undefeated in the conference. Rice 2-1 in the conference, playing really well. It's going to be very similar to Conference USA, where the kind of the race at the top is between a handful of teams, and somebody's going to be a surprise conference championship team.
Yeah, but the top three is going to be fun. I mean, Tulane, SMU, and UTSA are all good.
Yeah, ranked Tulane. They're going to have some battles. Memphis is not bad. Like, there's quality. There's quality there. We'll get to Memphis here not too long. But first, we've got a couple of the big games of the day. We had, first off, Ohio State defend home turf and beat Penn State 12-20. Penn State's offensive situation is really bad. I did not realize how bad it was. I can't believe anyone thought that they could win any football game, more or less this one, with an offense so limited and poor. I was shocked to my core to see how bad their offense is. And Ohio State's offense is not a lot better. So Ohio State has the best player in the country that you can kind of just go, here, save us.
Right.
So it wasn't great either direction, but Penn State's offense capabilities was terrible.
Yeah, it's just like even just looking at the stats, Drew Aller for Penn State, 18 for 43, 191 yards total passing and a touchdown, got sacked 3 times. He rushed for 13 yards on 3 carries, and then the two other guys who had carries, they had 18 carries between the two of them, and neither of them broke 50 yards on the day. And then their wide receiving core was just, Aller was obviously not throwing the ball around a bunch, but there's nobody even, one, Keandre Lambert-Smith had 6 catches for 52 yards, and he was their shining star, basically on the entire offense. And it just wasn't really getting found. And I don't think Ohio State has like this lights out defense or anything either.
No, they do. They actually do have. That was one of the things that I found out when I ran my adjusted opponent adjusted EPA thing. And let's see if I pull up find my map here.
And they were looking pretty good, better than you expected.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, they were looking pretty good.
Oh yeah, I remember you sent it to me. Well, as you're doing that, like defensively right now, against the pass from an EPA perspective, all year from the pass, they're 32 ranked against the pass across the nation, and then against the run, they're 23. And so, yeah, I mean, they're in the better, obviously in the top half of the nation defensively.
Yeah, they're
with a lot of
they're
stuff, so-
third in garbage time removed, opponent adjusted defense. It goes Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan.
Interesting.
Like their defense compared to their opponents has been considerably better, and they're like almost in a rarefied space above everybody else. Comparatively, their defense is good, and their offense is in the top. Yeah, it looks like in the top 25, 30. Like they're like. One of the reasons they had trouble is Penn State's defense was so good, and some of the reasons they do well is that they have a cheat code at wide receiver. But they have a cheat code at wide receiver.
Yeah, and at college football, when you're playing, college football at this level, and basically on anyone, it's like if you have one guy that can do what Marvin Harrison Jr. did, 11 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown. Like if you have a guy that has that capability, like you're gonna win games. It doesn't matter if you're playing against Georgia or Penn State. You're gonna be dangerous at any point.
Yeah, agreed. So, that's Penn State had no offense. Ohio State had enough offense. Ohio State's really good. We'll talk about another team that is also really good when we get through the schedule here, and we'll have to kind of start making some. I think we're going to have to start making some assumptions here, but we'll get there. But first, I want to get to UCF 29, Oklahoma 31. Oklahoma lets it get close late, but one of the worst two-point conversion plays I've ever seen be called in the universe, UCF called to take themselves out of an opportunity to win this. In general, Oklahoma looked like the better team. They were decent on offense. Their EPA per play, .07 was good. 51% success rate is great. This game shouldn't have really been that close. They lost the turnover battle by 1. And they were probably 10 points better. So this is fine, considering it's a good enough performance against a good enough team.
Yeah, and I feel like Oklahoma, I'm not going to burn them for winning this game so tightly, even though UCF did that. Watch that play. You got to, if whoever's listening to this right now, and just take a moment. If you didn't watch, go watch that highlight if you can find it, because it's a little rough to see that go down. So yeah, I'm okay with Oklahoma being deserving of the current spot in the top 25 that they are. If people want to give them some love, I'm okay with that. They have some offensive prowess, as Oklahoma normally does. Dylan Gabriel, quarterback, was 25 for 38, had 253 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. He did throw an interception though. It looks like they they had a fumble as well, but they didn't lose it, so that's all right. And then Nick Anderson, he caught 5 balls for 105 yards, had 2 touchdowns. Drake Stoops, I think the cousin or the nephew of Bob, something like that, 7 catches on 60 yards. So yeah, I mean they were doing the Oklahoma thing that they did, and then UCF played against a Big 12 team, and that makes it so you can probably score some of the time. So I think this is a really good look for UCF. I think hopefully they went home, even though they lost. They went home with their heads held, at least kind of high, because they had some.
Yeah, they shouldn't. They should be way better than they were this year.
But the fact that they aren't,
they played a good team close, but really they should. That's a game they should really could have considered themselves winning.
But I don't think. I mean, but the trail. Maybe we could say that like prior to the season, but like this season for them has not been awesome. UCF.
Fair. Honestly, that's fair.
Them figuring out a way to build into almost beating the number 6 team in the country, like that's something. So they're
considering the point in the world they are right now. Yes, they could have gotten blown out.
For sure.
That's fair. Yep, absolutely fair. I'll give you that. All right, let's talk about the undefeated Air Force Academy. It wasn't a very pretty game, but they beat Navy at Navy 17-6, mostly because they played much better defense. Navy had to try to throw the ball around, and they can't. It was negative EPA per play for both, considerably. Air Force ran the ball a lot, only passed the ball 6 times, got 151 yards out of it, including a bomb. A 94-yard bomb that is what basically won the game for them. But you got to do what you got to do sometimes, especially when you got rivalry games against the military teams. So
Yeah, and this was so Air Force Navy. Like this game was just like it was just exactly what you expect out of both of these teams. Obviously, you and I both watch the military academies is a lot, and so this is really like it just was two military academies playing against each other. That's how it felt. I mean, and the stat line for Air Force is it's just kind of funny. You're saying they only passed a little bit, but it's still not bad. I mean, if you're an Air Force quarterback and you went 4 for 5, which Zach Larrier did, you went 4 for 5 and 151 yards passing and a touchdown. Like
you're doing great.
That's a lights out passing game from anybody on a military school. So that's pretty great. And then the one bomb was to Dane Kinnaman, and that was his only catch and his only touchdown of the day. And that's all you need. That's all you got to do. So it sucks that Navy is bad, but they'll hopefully they'll get back to being better. But I think right now Air Force is the definitive best military school.
Oh yeah, by leaps and bounds.
For sure.
Yeah, by leaps and bounds. I mean, they're maybe the best group of 5 school period.
I would agree. I wish we could have like a group of 5 playoff at the end of the year to see how these guys, because I would love to see a Air Force against something like James Madison or them playing against Tulane, or that would be pretty fun.
Right. No, I agree. Like, I don't know. It'd probably be an insult, but it would be kind of cool if they said, hey, the one of these playoff games have to be a G5 versus G5 matchup, so they definitely make it to another round. Like that would be kind of a cool thing. Maybe it would make them feel short. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, it was just a cool thought.
Yeah.
Only worth a cursory mention because they're 0-5 in the SEC. Mississippi State 7, Arkansas 3. Arkansas, I thought they were going to be decent, and they are bad.
Right.
They're bad.
Yeah, they're very. It's weird. I also when we started the year, I was like, okay, Arkansas is they're going to be doing something, but yeah, they're not. They're not around, and especially in Mississippi State's obviously not good, but they only lost by 4, but they just can't get over this hump of like these short 5 points, 7 points, whatever. They just can't. Arkansas just can't win. Can't get the rest of the points they need to get a win. That's happened multiple times this year.
Yeah, their offense is just not. It's not getting there.
Yeah, and they only lost to Alabama by 3. They lost to Ole Miss by 7. LSU they only lost to by 3. This Mississippi State only lost by 4. So they're like bad, but like kind of not bad. If
their defense is good.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
If it's
their
2 more
defense
touchdowns,
is good.
they're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. They are. So it's so funny in this adjusted offensive defense graph. You've got this group of teams kind of near each other. Utah's behind them. Their defense is almost exactly the same, but Utah's offense is a little worse. Nebraska's just in front of them, and it's just a scale between winning a few more games and not quite winning enough games. Like it's like Utah won most of them. And Nebraska is going to probably get bowl eligible, and Arkansas is having a terrible year, and they're all statistically very similar. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Another game of note. Rutgers is 6-2. They're bowl eligible. They beat Indiana on the road, 31-14. All right.
Yeah, I think that's Rutgers. Now that we know more about Penn State and Ohio State, this Rutgers team doing what they've done this year is interesting because they could do something. They have a pretty tough run. I mean, for them, they have a pretty tough run for the remainder of the year. They have Ohio State coming up, then Iowa. They have Ohio State at home. Then they have to go to Iowa. They have to go to Pennsylvania to play against Penn State, and then they get Maryland at home. So I mean, they very easily could lose all 4 of those games, but.
They're as good as Maryland, probably.
Yeah,
Maryland's actually a little bit better because Maryland's a little bit better offensively, but they're not that far of a jump from Maryland. They are worse than Penn State and worse than Ohio State, and I don't know about Iowa. I think anybody could beat Iowa if they just score 3 times, and they can do that.
Right, and I think Penn State and Ohio State are liable to have bad days, and Rutgers and Maryland are both the type of teams that can really make their lives hard. Penn State has an offensive day like that.
If both those teams won a close game. You wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'm shocked.
No. And so Rutgers could knock off some people. which would be fun.
Sure,
I don't know
sure.
if
I
it's
mean,
gonna
they're
happen,
they're
but it'd be
good.
fun.
I said this before, and I'll probably repeat it during the season. Graciano, it was a big L I took there. I thought he was totally out of it. He lost the touch, but he gets it. He gets Rutgers, the area football. He'll get a couple more years out of it before it's just too much work to keep it going. But I'm impressed. Quick mention: BC is 4-3 after beating Georgia Tech on the road. Also, Baylor in the Big 12 got a win against Cincinnati on the road. Cincinnati just not ready. Like they're way behind.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, really just
way
picking up the pieces.
It's not farther behind than maybe they deserve, because if you throw out Luke Fickell, then what were they? What have they been?
For sure.
But it is stark. It does feel like what I thought Houston might be the team that was going to fall off in the conversion, but it looks like Cincinnati might be the team. And a quick mention: Memphis beat UAB. Fuck UAB. Memphis 5-2, 2-1 in the AAC, winning 45-21.
Yeah, top half of the American is actually maybe not the top half, but the top 4 teams. You got Tulane, SMU, UTSA, Memphis. I said this earlier. Like all four of these teams could beat up on each other this over the course of the rest of the year, and we'll see. And I think it's going to get us to a really interesting American championship, however that shakes out. I assume it'll be a Tulane SMU, but that'll be awesome. That'll be super fun. So Memphis gets SMU second to last game of the season. So they got some more stuff, but I think they'll be really good. I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're better than Tulane or SMU, even maybe UTSA, but they could do some damage to anybody right now.
Look, here's the problem. UTSA is undefeated in conference, and even though they have 3 losses in the year, there is no reason that they couldn't win every game head-to-head, especially if Frank, what's his name, their quarterback, Frank White, I think, if he's healthy, right? SMU, very good. Their just point differential is exceptional. Tulane, when everybody's healthy, that's the best team in the conference and one of the best teams in the country. But they haven't looked like they've put it all together every game yet, right? And quietly, Rice isn't so bad. Rice is 2-1. I think FAU, South Florida, Navy, they're off the pace, and then you really drop off North Texas. But Tulane, SMU, UTSA, Memphis, and Rice, though all of those teams can beat all of those teams, except maybe Tulane probably beats Rice pretty handily. But other than that, it's all to play for. So love that, especially because they'll play early week games and they play like off-hour games. So Memphis is in it.
There you
go. The Ohio Bobcats have got their 6th win. They won at home against Western Michigan 20-17. The Ohio quality MAC team and going to be right there at the end for the MAC championship.
Yeah, and that side is 3-1 in conference. Miami of Ohio, 3-1 Ohio, and 3-1 Buffalo Bulls, all 3-1 in conference. So that's something. And then on the other side, Toledo's 4-0. And then you have NIU at 3-1, but yeah, the East is the real side of the MAC, and
yeah,
so
nobody in the West is as good as Toledo.
No,
everybody in the West is second. Like they might lose to one of those teams because they could, I guess, but they've won 7 straight. They're really good. But on the East side, yeah. I mean, I think Buffalo just happened to get it's a luck of the draw thing, and how Buffalo they played the 3 worst teams in the conference so far. They must have, but. Miami, Ohio, making a run for it.
Yeah, and we've talked about Curtis Rourke a couple of times. Ohio's my MAC team, so I know I brought him up. But he's having a really fun year, man. 24 for 39 this game, 275 yards passing, and a touchdown. So he's moving around 8 points of EPA. So he's doing a lot, and he's got some wide receivers that he can really like throw the ball to and have some fun. Sam Wiglas had 10 catches for 155 yards and a touchdown, just using that cheat code like levels to get them a dub. So he's got some fun. He has offense around him to make himself look good, and I think he's a quality quarterback. It's really they have the heartbeat of a MAC team, which obviously they should, but you can see it in the stats too. It's very MAC football.
Oh yeah, well you're gonna have a couple teams at the top of the MAC in that rotation of who's good, and it's Ohio's turn, so good for them.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern gets to their 5th win at home against ULM. We kind of talked about the Sun Belt, but I wanted to mention the Georgia Southern win. Bowling Green 2-2 in the MAC, a home win, 41-14 against Akron. Akron is bad. They're not quite as bad as Kansas or Kent State is, but Akron is bad, and I don't know that Akron will ever be good, which is just unfortunate.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Akron, Ohio. It seems like if they're lucky, they'll have good basketball, and I don't think even that is going to be that lucky for them.
Right. Yeah. Oregon beats Washington State at home. Washington State is now 1-3 in the Pac-12, and even though that's not a surprise if you really pull far back and you look at the teams, the quality of the teams that they're playing, and all, but I think that they really hope that they had got a couple more wins in the Pac-12 before this point hits. Oregon gonna be a tough out going forward. They still play decent defense, and they just score more than everybody else, and offensively. The game really shouldn't even have been that close. They had .45 EPA, almost a half a point of play. Success rate was through the roof. Yards per play was through the roof. Yards per pass. Just a ridiculous offensive display for the Oregon Ducks, who are a very good football team.
Yes, they are, and I'll stop. I will officially stop my shit talking of Oregon. I will officially stop. They are more than Bo Nix. They are a real team. It is bigger than that. And Bo Nix has obviously been great all year. Went 18 for 25, had 293 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in this game. But look, the running back game is great too. Bucky Irving, 15 carries, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jordan James, 13 carries, 103 yards. So great run. Oregon is really having some fun playing offense. And here's the thing though too, is like this we got a Wazoo team here that is 1-3 in conference and 4-3 overall, but like this Pac-12 it's a gauntlet. It's an absolute
they're good
gauntlet. And so
they're good.
So like you can, if you just glanced over. Even if you just glance over the Pac-12 and everything of Washington, you'd go, man, maybe Washington State's not that good, but they are legit. Like, this is good, and this is a big win. I think this is a big win for Oregon. It shows that Oregon is really coming to play, really doing some heavy stuff, and Washington. Even though it's unfortunate they got this loss, I think that it shows how hard it is to win in the Pac-12, and it shows that Oregon is really around.
Yep, agreed. A team that's also still around, the Crimson Tide of Alabama, who beat Tennessee at home 34-20, just stormed back in the second half. And Tennessee complained about the officiating, which could be in play, but they got just absolutely denominated in the second half by an Alabama team that I think I heard somebody say this, I don't think I made this up, but has really seemed to figure out how to be what they are. Like, they understand what they are now, and they're just doing it. They're just being what they are, real good, and that's trouble.
And that feels like just quintessential Saban right there. He's just like, we're going to play the game that we're going to play, and we're going to keep doing that over and over until we get wins. And that's obviously what he's done over the course of his coaching career there, and show it. But as I was watching this game, I was with some buddies that they're all big college basketball guys, but they don't really watch the college football, but they kind of know. But so I was kind of talking to them about the bias that the SEC gets and all that kind of stuff. And this game, this game is frustrating for me as somebody who like has some general salt towards the SEC, or at least the hype that the SEC gets sometimes that it doesn't deserve, because it's still Alabama. And it's a Saban coach team. I'm not going to say they're a bad team, but they're definitely off the pace. And Tennessee is, they're fine. I don't want to say that they're good or right, but there's people that were watching this game this weekend, watch this game, and we're like, this is why the SEC is great. We got a 9th rank, we got a 9 rank, or whatever they were ranked at the time, and they played it tight, and Saban got it done. But this is why the SEC is the best player, and it's just not. And it sucks that we're watching 2 very average teams being ranked, although deservedly so, at the 2 places that they are. Like, I'm okay with where they're ranked. I think that they deserve to be there in regards to the whole top 25. But like, this is an average Alabama team playing against a less than average, like a not that good Tennessee team, and it's like I think people could pat themselves on the back and say like the SEC is great. It's just not the case. Like this is two teams that are figuring things out, but they're really on build or you're trying to figure out. They're not great.
Yeah, and I think this year more than past years, people seem to understand that. Like I haven't seen people falling all over themselves to call the SEC the best. Like obviously you're going to have people, but I think that in the general zeitgeist, people do think, maybe they're not the best. But the problem is, but you have that same problem in the Big Ten. Outside of the Big Three, who do you have to balance anybody else off of? Because they all haven't really played necessarily out of conference, right? Like, you only have a couple of teams. Like, Notre Dame, just because of their nature, they have really good schedule against a lot of spread out teams, and then they took 2 L's. You know what I mean?
Right.
You've got, while Michigan's not going to play anybody until they play Ohio State and Penn State, who didn't really play anybody except for each other, right? Like, it's difficult all the way around, and so I'm to the point where I've decided as long as I feel like there's a decent spread, that's all I really care about, because it's always going to be bad. Just as long as it feels like, and this year it feels like, hey, the Pac-12 teams are getting their due, the top of the Big Ten teams are getting their due. Duke's got a couple of like interesting nationally televised games, even though there's only really one really good team in the ACC, so they're there. SEC's, they've probably got one team too many. And, one of these smaller conference teams should be there, but it's okay. Like, I feel like the spread is not egregious, so I can live with it this year.
Yeah, no. I'm happy that, I guess, like, if I can try to open my mind up, in that I need to have the perspective of, maybe it's me just being salty, and it's probably everything's probably a little bit better than I think.
It's deserved. Don't get it wrong. It's deserved. Like they had teams way too high preseason ranked, and then that carries over, and teams are too high. Is Alabama like Alabama right now? If you told me they're a top 15 football team because of their defense and their coaching, I'd go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Like right now, Alabama versus Utah in a neutral field, that's almost a coin flip.
I agree.
Right? That's almost a coin flip game right now. So, fine. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's fine.
Another team that is hard to gauge, but who I think is good, but it's so hard, is the Missouri Tigers, who go to 7-1, 3-1 in the SEC after beating South Carolina 12-34. I think Missouri is good. I like to watch them. I guess that's all that counts.
Yeah, I just don't. When we started the season, I thought that they were going to be bad. Like, I was like, it's just going to be a bad Missouri time. Like, they just didn't. Like, they played Mid-10 State, like, kind of close early. And I remember thinking to myself at that point, I was like, all right, this is probably just going to be a whatever sort of Mizzou year. But then they beat Kansas State, the next game. And then since then, they've obviously been rolling. Only have lost to LSU. And so, yeah, I think I don't know if they're good, but I'm okay with them being where they are at the whatever 16, like, and them being 7-1. Like, they deserve to keep climbing until they show us that they can't. They played, and they got Georgia coming up this week, so that'll be really a big test. Like, if they just get blown out, then we know, because I think Georgia's very, very good, but I don't think it's not a Georgia of old. So if they have to, Mizzou goes into in between the I was going to say the ferns, in between the bushes, like, and they just get beat up, like, I'll feel a little bit more that they're not that good, but, I'm
between the hedges is what you meant.
What did I say?
Between
bushes?
the hedges.
I said between the bushes. Between the hedges. I ferns, bushes, all the things.
It stunned me so much. I was having a hard time trying to understand what you were talking about, and then I figured it out.
Between the hedges, yes. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about Missouri, but I'm okay with them being good. I'm okay with it.
So here's the thing I'll say about Missouri: they're in a stats grouping with Toledo and Fresno and North Carolina and Ole Miss and South Alabama and Kansas State. They beat Kansas State. One of the really good, true non-conference wins that anybody's had in the SEC.
Right.
So because of that, they're getting credit from me.
Yeah. And it's a great win. Yeah, it's a great win.
Yeah, and they looked really good. They had a good EPA. It was a good win against the South Carolina team that is not great, but has talent. And you can't take a day off against him, which is the best I can say for him. Fine win for Missouri.
Yeah, Brady Cook for Mizzou. He's good. He's throwing the ball around really well for them.
Yeah. Green Wave go to 6-1 with a home win against North Texas, 35-28. Probably a little bit closer than Tulane would like, but again, I think that I want to say that their quarterback Pratt. Yeah, they were working Pratt in. Because he's still kind of recovering from being healthy. They look good, though. Numbers were good. They didn't play great defense. I mean, that's going to be their overall problem when they start playing real teams. They don't play fantastic defense because North Texas is not that good. But you win the games that are in front of you, and your record tells you what you are. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure. And they got a good running back, McKee Hughes, Makhi Hughes. He's been. I feel like I've talked about him quite a few times over the course of this year, but I'm looking at his stats and it seems a little bit better. But he for the full year, it's not quite as good as I thought. But for this game, he had 20 carries for 123 yards and a touchdown, 6 points of EPA. So they at least have some guys. And Pratt builds more, if as he feels more confident in his body and getting healthier, like Tulane's going to continue to be very dangerous. They're if they had to play against Air Force, I think Air Force maybe wins, but as of right in this moment, but by the time we get to the end of the year, if that's a bowl game that we see or something, like I could see Tulane, really working over whoever they play.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they probably won't play unless they both. I don't think there's a circumstance that they both play unless they both fall off to where they fall into the same bowl. Which is just too bad.
Yeah, it really is.
Because it would be cool to see
that play. That would be a super fun game to watch.
Unlike a game that wasn't a super fun game to watch and had controversy, is Minnesota 12, Iowa 10. Iowa gets that second loss they needed for having just an abysmal offense. They had 2 yards in the second half, but they got. I'm
That's
not going to say
wild.
Screwed. I know.
That's wild.
Their offensive failures is impressive, but. They had a punt return for a touchdown called back for an illegal hand motion where the guy was pointing at the ball and kind of making a poison wave. But he might have known what he was doing and kind of trying to fake it look like a fair catch. He might not have been. It might have been a bad call. But I just don't care. If you score 10 points and you have 2 yards of offense in the second half, then you've blown your opportunities to make up for bad calls.
Yeah.
Like eventually, you got to do more than that. Not that getting 12 points is much better. I don't know why Minnesota deserves it. This would be better off if this was a tie, I think. But that's it. That's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, and it's rough. They're rushing. I mean, they didn't even between the 4 people who touched the ball rushing, they didn't even get to 50 yards total, and all of those guys touched it like a combined 20 times. So yeah, just 2 yards of offense in the second half is nuts. Like that film room every week, the offensive film room has to be just pain.
Yeah, I mean it's bad. It's really bad. It's not going to get any better. They must know it's not going to get any better, so they're not trying to do anything more, but just try to make it when it happen, but it's bad. A couple other games just worth a mention. I actually have a set of 5 of them I'm going to mention real quick because they're all about the same. We can obviously talk about them when we want to. Wisconsin gets to 5 wins. On the road against the Illini, they win 25-21. Nebraska gets their 4th win at home against Northwestern. They win 17-9. South Florida goes to 4-4, 2-2 in the AAC. They beat UConn on the road 24-21. Wake beats Pitt. Sad as shit what's happening in Pitt. Wake wins, goes to 4-3. And Oklahoma State, 5-2, 3-1 in the Big 12, could be the team that could play in the Big 12 championship very quietly, beats West Virginia on the road 48-34.
I'll say it, and you guys knew it was coming, but those Pokes are Interesting. And I've been in my feelings a lot about Oklahoma State this year, because I want them to be better, just because I like when they're good. But they really they're building, man. There's just been the thing that's not a theme, but that thing that's happened over the time that we've done this podcast. So this year and last year, like that we talk about some teams that really like at the beginning of the year we didn't really know what was going on, and then as the year progressed, by the time we get to the end of the year, it's like, whoa, what is this team? We've made note of that multiple times for Utah, but even like Florida State last year was a real build situation and stuff, and so maybe that's what Oklahoma State can do, is really just settle. That's what they're
100% what they're doing,
and it's great.
100% exactly what they're doing.
And from a stat perspective, Ollie Gordon II had 29 carries, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns. So he had himself a game, which is what you want as Oklahoma State. And yeah, that would be awesome. They waltz into the Big 12 championship. I don't think they're as good as Oklahoma or Texas, but like it may not, they get there and maybe they do something on the day. Maybe they build to that point. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it would be kind of interesting. And then the only other thing to comment just on these games is that I think if I'm a Wisconsin fan today, and I'm a Lou Fickell fan, and I'm also a little bit of a Wisconsin fan, like I think that they made it to 5-2 overall, 3-1, and like
great.
I think this is a great start to the Fickell era. He's been moving stuff around. He's doing some things. So if you're a Wisconsin fan today, I think you're doing okay. And I would almost feel the same way if I'm Nebraska. I'm still maybe a little bit on the fence if I was a Nebraska fan on Rule and stuff. But the fact that they're 4-3 right now, I think is showing good stuff going in first year.
Nebraska had a much bigger crater to climb out of, so
True.
Being over 500 and having a shot at a bowl game is great.
Yeah.
I think you need to be ecstatic if you're a Nebraska fan.
Yeah.
Like maybe you think there's another win there. There's probably a win there that probably should happen, but it was early. It was like right at the beginning of your coaching tenure with your team. So that's the kind of stuff that you trip up on when you're a new staff, and then you build it up, and they get to 6 wins this year. That if they don't win another game, I think you can probably go, that was maybe a failure of a year that shouldn't be. But if they win 2 more games, that's probably worth a parade. I think that's great.
Yeah, I would agree. If 6-win Nebraska team first year, especially they were not good before that. Yeah, that's what you want to see year one out of the new guy.
Yeah, but Wisconsin's doing exactly what they should be doing, and they should be very pleased with what's happening in Wisconsin. It looks great.
Yeah, and they're running the ball too, which I'm sure that the Wisconsin faithful love.
Yeah, they're balanced. They're running balanced. I mean, they're running a real offense, and whether that's because they're bridging the gap and they're going to keep changing, maybe they're maturing, maybe this is just what they always wanted to run. Great, I think that they're going to be fine. Quick note: Ball So Hard University did get a win against Central Michigan. They're moved up to 2-6, 1-3 in the MAC. So
Ball So Hard.
A game that was close. I don't know. No, I'm going to say surprisingly. It got a little tight there. It got a little hairy. Texas 31, Houston 24, but Texas ends up winning and keeping the run to the rematch.
Yeah, there was a time I was watching this game, and there was a time during the third quarter where I was like, Texas is trying to lose this game. Like, they're trying to lose this game. And it was tied up 21-21, and then I think maybe even got tied up 24-24 too. But then they did the thing that teams that are better than other teams in college football did, and they just played the full game, and Houston just didn't quite have a full 4 quarters in the tank. But that's just the nature of so many games in college football that happen week over week. And so I think that Houston it was a great effort from them. I think they at least shouldn't be too down on themselves, about this. I think Texas, yeah, it seems maybe a little closer than the feeling of the game was, save that third quarter, or I guess the first half of the game. But yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine on both sides. Texas deserves the win, and they should continue. Hopefully, voters didn't knock them too hard, which I know, with their ranking says that they didn't, and that's fine. So I'm okay with Texas winning this way. I'm okay with all of it. It's fine.
Yeah, they had a bad spot. Houston went late, and then they had a fourth down that they missed. They outgained Texas. They played really well, considering Texas was like a 24-point favorite. It's good, but those are the games that you kind of have data to win. You want to win games like that.
Yeah,
so.
definitely.
Big matchup in the MAC, little cross-divisional matchup. Toledo beat Miami of Ohio 21-17. We kind of mentioned them, but it just further cements Toledo as the best team in the MAC, I think, by a good margin.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Let's see. We don't have to spend too much time here, but University of Virginia, the Commodores, 31.
We don't
North
have to
Carolina
spend too much
University,
time here.
27. Finally, the team gets shown for what they are. A team that just surprisingly has the ability to pee their pants once or twice a year. They waited as long as they could to finally do it, but boy, they sure peed their pants. Virginia played a hell of a game.
Yeah.
An absolute fantastic 4-star game. They just played better all the way across the four corners.
Yeah, great game for Virginia. Virginia just was like, today's the day, and they really just pulled together as a team and really just had a good day. Tony Muskett, their quarterback, went 20 for 30, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 3 points of EPA, and then Malik Washington, their wideout, 12 catches for 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 10 points of EPA. So they had a guy that really wanted to come and play. Tony could throw the ball around a little bit, which is great. But here's the other thing, and I would love to talk some more shit on North Carolina. And maybe this is kind of inadvertently doing that, but like North Carolina, Drake May at North Carolina, he is a talent, man. He really can throw the ball around. He's really like the heartbeat. He's an athletic dude. He's doing all the things. And so it's so interesting to look at these stats, because he was 25 for 48. 380 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and interception. And I'm sure the interception didn't help. But then he also rushed for 26 yards, had a touchdown rushing, and he was, between his rushing and passing, if I were to combine the EPAs, he would be probably negative EPA overall, which is crazy to think that he was moving the ball around that much and still was effectively hurting his team from a scoring perspective, which is just like an interesting thing. But we can't deny that he's not good. But I think Mac Brown, even back in his Texas days, there was times where I was like, what are you guys doing? You guys are way better. There's no reason for this loss to have happened. And this is kind of what this feels like. I mean, even Amarion, their running back, Amarion Hampton, he had 112 yards rushing on 19 carries. And they had Devontae Walker, 11 catches, 146 yards, 1 touchdown. So it's, from that side, from the purely just looking at the stats, at the most top level, it's like this is a North Carolina team that can obviously move the ball around, but where and how they were moving that ball around obviously wasn't enough, as we could see from some of this negative EPA stuff, and their EPA just wasn't as good. They really weren't getting the ball into position to score throughout the game, even though it kind of feels like they should have.
Yeah, I mean, if I was being charitable, I'd say building what he's built in North Carolina is worth credit, but I don't want to be charitable. He just fails at the times when he really shouldn't, and that's what I want him to have credit for. So,
this is that game. This is that game.
Yeah, this is that game. Your favorite SEC university, the Ole Miss Rebs, beat Auburn 28-21. Ole Miss is 6-1, 3-1 in the SEC. They are still kind of on the outside looking in because they lost to Alabama, but they beat LSU, and so if a tie-break situation happens, they still got a shot at playing in the conference championship game.
I would hate that. Fuck Ole Miss. Fuck Lane Kiffin. I hope the whole shit burns down. I don't care about it at all. But I will give a nod to Jackson Dart. He is, when I do watch Ole Miss, even though I'm begrudged to do it, I do have some fun watching him move the ball around. He's a good, he's real fun athlete to watch. Didn't have a crazy game passing wise. 10 for 17, 202 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But more from the visual than like what's on the stats and how he contributed to the game. Like he is pretty fun to watch. So I can't hate everything, even though I want to hate everything.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same at UNC. Like, if I wanted to be charitable, I could say, look, they kind of are holding on in games that they really should, games they really shouldn't be able to win looking that way. So they put together enough defense and offense to hang in there, and they're not, I mean, like if I told you 10 years ago that, you'd have pretty consistent 10 to 15 rank Ole Miss teams, you'd think something amazing was happening
For sure.
So,
for sure.
But that's enough. That's enough credit he deserves. And he's another team that only gets a little bit of credit on this podcast. BYU 27, Texas Tech 14. BYU gets their fifth win. Another team in the Big 12 that gets their fifth win that I want to talk about more, Kansas State 41, TCU 3. Kansas State absolutely takes Texas Christian University out to the wood fucking shed. Kansas State is no joke and could play in the conference championship game.
Yeah, that's kind of cool that they could play. Like the Big 12 is interesting. This year we have Oklahoma and Texas doing their thing, and they're deserving of the place that they are. But then you have this top. Yeah, we have this thing like Kansas State. They lost, losing to Mizzou as we were talking about, and then doing some other. They've been a little lackluster as compared to where I thought they were going to be at the start of the year.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's also sort of build. Like, it's not, they're figuring things out even post these losses and being able to do stuff. So it's like we really could have a mix up at the end of the Big 12 conference year that if Kansas State gets into the Big 12 championship or Oklahoma State gets in the Big 12 championship, like it's not going to be a cakewalk for whoever they play.
Nope, I agree. I mean, I think that Kansas State, Oklahoma State, both could be tricky, could be a problem for somebody. Iowa State, not as much. I'm not worried about them as much, even though they're 3-1 in conference. I think they got some losses still ahead of them, but I think that Kansas State looks like Texas when it comes to the point differential. They're playing really well. I think once you hit BYU and down, you just got some teams that have got some wins but aren't great. Kansas, but it'll be interesting in the middle of the conference. But it's just remarkable the way that they manhandle TCU. I don't know what I expected at TCU. I didn't expect great things anyway, so it's fine. But a team that I didn't expect great things out of, that they're getting great things out of, and is in the running for the conference championship, as we mentioned. UNLV beats Colorado State 25-23 in what ends up being a little bit of a wild ending game. 6 field goal game win, including a 3-second left game winner for UNLV. They kind of had to scraggle one out, but 6-1, man. 6-1.
For real. The Mountain West, we talked about it, I think we talked about it last week or the week before, but man, the Mountain West, I didn't really think about it at all at the beginning of the season. Like it was sort of a blip in time, which is even worse because we, as a Utah fan and coming from Utah, like the Mountain West was the bread and butter. That's where I lived my life. And you and I have spent a lot of time in Logan watching football. And so I have a sort of a kinship. I have a real warm spot in my heart for the Mountain West. But at the beginning of the year, I didn't really. I was just kind of whatever about it. But the Mountain West picture is really like it's fun, man. UNLV. We're talking about a 6-1 UNLV team, which is crazy. And then at the top, and they're second in the conference to Air Force. That I think Air Force is pretty definitively the best team in the Mountain West, but like they could get got by it goes UNLV, then Wyoming, then Fresno State, then Boise State, then San Jose State, and now once you get from San Jose State down, nothing really is gonna go on. But San Jose State has some offense to be able to do some things. Fresno State is a team that I've been watching a lot. My team in the Mountain West, and they're doing some stuff, and even Wyoming. So yeah, the Mountain West season as it comes to a close is going to be really interesting, and I'm very excited for the champ game. However, it'll probably be Air Force beating up on whoever, but I don't know if that's for sure what's going to happen.
Sure. But Air Force has been very good. And the race to see who will play Air Force will be great. I think there's a lot of good teams there. All right, let's see. Let's talk about Michigan 49, Michigan State 0 in the what might forever be mentioned as the Hitler game now, as Michigan State played a trivia question about where Hitler was born on their giant screen during the game that had everybody go, what the hell? Yeah. It was amazing. And the set of questions was like, what color is this? What chemical is this? Where is Hitler born? It's just amazing. The screenshots of a giant Hitler on a giant screen where there was more Hitlers on the screen than points scored by Michigan State. Here's what we have to come to terms with. We're not going to get enough data points to make a really true estimation of Michigan's quality if it's a similar kind of game that Ohio State played to Penn State when Michigan plays Ohio State. I think Michigan's considerably better than Penn State. I don't think that's going to be a question. We could talk about this again when that happens. But I think if Michigan beats Ohio State 13-10, we're going to go, wait, is Michigan really good? Where right now, if you look at how they played their opponents that they've had, Michigan is very, very good.
Yeah, they've done everything they needed to against these teams, as compared to them, these below average teams, that says that they're the number 2 team in the nation. They may be the number 1 in the team in the nation because we have a similar sort of conversation to have about Georgia, who have they played, what's going on. But yeah, I mean, they've done everything that they've needed to. They goose egg Michigan State. They went into Iowa, Indiana beat the crap out of them, beat the crap out of Minnesota, so on and so forth. So I think that I will know more about the Michigan in 2 weeks when they play against Penn State than I would know when they play Ohio State at the end of the year. Because if it's tight again, so even if they lose against Ohio State, it's not going to leave them out of the playoff. Probably, I guess the Big Ten championship is the thing there, because whoever one of them will be the one, and that will be the decider on who goes to the Big Ten championship game. So that will be a thing. But even if that happens, I could still see the committee putting Michigan in, regardless depending on what's going on.
What I'm talking about doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not they're going to play. Unless the earth falls in, they're going to play. I'm just saying we're not going to have, we've been asking through these first 8 games of the season, how good is Michigan? And I'm just saying we may not know, and we're going to have to judge them on how well they've been beating the crap out of these bad teams. Because that might turn out we get to the playoffs and they're like Georgia was last year, and we're just like, well, it turns out they were really good, and that's why they were blowing teams out. I just want to prepare everyone for that.
Yeah, but I think the run that they have, they play Purdue coming up. Doesn't really matter. They should do what they've done to everybody else up until this point. But then you got Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. I think they beat the crap out of Maryland, but that'll give me some confidence in their abilities. But I really think the Penn State game will be we'll know if they beat Penn State by 3 touchdowns. I'm like, it's definitive. They probably, if that happens, I think that they deserve to be the number 1 team in the country. They should jump Georgia. I think that they deserve. I think we learn a lot of stuff about Michigan when they play Penn State, because they have to go up to Happy Valley to get that win, and that's not going to be super easy.
Penn State was just so bad, though.
That's kind of my point.
They were so bad.
But if Michigan goes in and beats them by more touchdowns than Ohio State does, then it's definitive. Then that's the thing. And I think Penn State is bad, but I think their defense is good, and they'll be at home, and so they have all of the right mix of things for me to say Michigan gets a good win. It is a good win. Michigan is as good as we think, and the rest kind of doesn't matter, because they'll, if they lose against Ohio State, it doesn't really matter. They could still get in the playoff and beat 2 teams to win a national championship at that point.
I think that they could beat Penn State, and all we've learned is that Penn State isn't as good as we thought they were. I just don't.
I don't know.
I just don't. I just won't. I won't be convinced unless they really look. If they now I'm going to take it back a little bit. If they score 28, 30, 35 points on a very good Penn State defense, then I take it back.
Yeah.
Then I'll be like, you know what? They're great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But barring that, it might just be Penn State's bad.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's,
we'll see.
I'm
We'll just
okay
have to
with
see
that.
how it comes. I just want people to be prepared
Yeah.
with the knowledge that we may not understand what they are if things break out a certain way.
Yeah.
A team that I think we think is good. I think that 4 spots probably good for them. Is Florida State? They beat Duke 38-20. Now Duke had Riley Leonard out for the back end of this game. I don't know that Duke wins this game even with Riley Leonard in. Maybe it's a touchdown closer. Florida State's very good. They beat a gamey Duke team.
Yeah, I think this has a very similar feel to how I feel about that. Like I was just talking about for Michigan playing against Penn State. I think that you're right. Like Duke, even fully healthy with everything they need, they probably still don't win this game. And so Florida State does everything they need. Maybe and Duke puts up 20 on this Florida State team, which in my head kind of scares me. But they're a good team. Duke is a good team. They're going to win more
Duke's
games
a good team.
this year.
They're probably 20 points on Florida State good in a general sense. Fine.
And I'm them doing that, and I don't think that that's a huge knock on Florida State. I think Duke deserves, just based on their talent alone, what they've done this year, to have that 20 and for everybody to say that's totally fine. Florida State wasn't messing up; they just did what it was. I think Jordan Travis is very good. He's fun to watch. He's going to be the catalyst for Florida State in the championship game, and as we get into the playoff, assuming they don't lose. And so like. I'm totally. You said it right. Like we think that they're good, and I'm on the side of them being good. That they go into, especially with how the other top 7 teams in the nation are. They could beat any of them, but if they got beat by all of them in that hypothetical situation, I wouldn't be shocked by it. So I'm okay with the 4 spot. I think it's deserving. This is the type of game that makes me believe in them even more.
Sure. Yeah, fine. LSU 62, Army 0. It's not worth mentioning except for the fact that LSU is very good on offense. Yeah. Probably the best offensive team in the country. And also could play in a championship game and could surprise people, but their defense is really bad. So it's almost a USC situation.
Almost. But USC is so much worse.
Yeah, USC 32, Utah 34. The Utes travel to LA and get a nice late drive and a capping field goal to beat a USC team that just is totally getting outcoached offense to defense. Their defense is poor at best.
At best, yeah. It's not good. Caleb Williams is Caleb Williams, so they're always going to put up points and stuff, and he's great to watch. He's fun. To win 24 for 35, 256 yards passing, no touchdowns, had 3 points of positive EPA. So he's doing Caleb Williams stuff. He's got some guys that he can throw the ball to around. But yeah, the USC defense is not good, and you know that they're not good because this Utah offense is, although I just want to talk shit, so I'm gonna say that they're bad, but it's not. I think because based on all of the stuff that has happened to them, to this Utah offense, like the fact that they're doing the things that they've been doing, I think they, Whittingham and everybody deserve a pat on the back. They're figuring out some stuff when they lost basically all of the heavyweights that they have on their offense, and I think Rising is now out for the season.
Yeah, he said he was not going to play this year.
Yeah, so they've been really just cobbling together offense, this Utah team, and so that they can get a win against a USC team that, even though their defense is trash, like they were always going to have to put up a lot of points. So I don't really know what this means. I think that this shows that the Pac-12 is very good overall. I don't know how to feel about Utah, other than they're winning, and that's good, I guess. And USC's defense sucks. Those are the only things I know.
Yeah, I mean, look, their offense is better, but Utah's in the bottom 30 in offense.
Is bad,
but they're in the top 30 in defense.
Right.
But they're matched around teams like Pitt and Arkansas and Nebraska and North Carolina State and Buffalo, teams that don't have wins or don't have a really good record, aren't where Utah is. So the coaching makes a lot of difference. And as much as whatever my feelings are on Whittingham, which I don't even know what they are, It's always a really well coached football team.
Yes,
and
that's
that
true.
That definitely happened in that game against USC. Quick notes: Miami beat Clemson 28-20. Dabo is a bitch. Miami wins in overtime, even after almost blowing it. Dabo said something like, "Oh, well, maybe we need to lose a few times to get teams off the bandwagon." Like he just didn't know he had an ass team. But we saw through it. Miami gets the win. Georgia State gets their 6th win, beating Louisiana on the road, which is just awesome.
Yep, fun little game.
UCLA goes to 5-2 with a win against Stanford, and finally the last game of the night: Washington 15, Arizona State 7. Look, it's a bad game for Washington, but if you say everybody's gonna have a bad one in a good conference, then you go, all right, this is probably fine.
I think so too. Like they won, and that's all that matters. That's what you got to do. And their ranking went up, and they're still undefeated, and they're still very good. I think that their offense was just a little. It's an offense that I feel is normally very good and very professional and is really put together. It was just lacking a little bit. There was a time I texted you. You and our buddy Tyler that night, it was like, are they going to lose this game? And obviously they didn't, but there was moments in time where I was like, man, they really just can't get it together. Now, to on the Arizona State side, like Arizona State is not as good as like Arizona to me in my mind, and living here, the sort of thing. Well, what I'll say is Arizona State generally gets a little less hype just because it's in Phoenix and there's a billion other things that are happening in Phoenix. Nobody really cares about Tempe that much, and so you don't really get the heartbeat of the city versus Tucson, where the school is like really like, this is where U of A is. All of these people are employed about it. It really pumps the economy down here. It does all this stuff. So you really, throughout the state, I think you really hear maybe some more about Arizona. But my point behind all of that is that I think that whether you're in Phoenix or whether you're down south by me, that everybody knows that Arizona is a little bit better. They're just scrappier. They're, obviously they're from the win perspective. But that being said, I think that there's some things that Arizona State's doing, even though they look bad, that doesn't shock me that they kind of kept things close on one day against a good team. Are they going to do that? Be able to do that again? No, but like they had the ability to do this on a day. Like this is one of those things, like that football stat that you have to be good today. They at least started to check that box.
Yeah, their defense is probably in the top 45 in adjusted defensive EPA. They play well on defense. Their offense is in the back half. And they're really actually very similar to Utah. One's offense is a little bit better, one's defense is a little bit better. And so it's bad breaks, losing close games. It's probably a little coaching. It's probably young players. But, yeah, they can show up against anybody, right? And Washington, look, after all that is said, Washington is like top 30 defense and basically the number 2 offense in the country. Yeah. And so Washington will probably be fine.
Yeah, I think they will be. But the Pac-12 is hard, man. I think it's the conference right now. I think it's the one.
The top. I mean, it's hard because because what we really are saying when we say that is they're contenders, right? It's so hard to judge the middle and bottom, right? So we're saying, look, you got 5-2 UCLA, you got 6-1 Utah, you got 6-1 Oregon State, you got 6-1 Oregon, you got 6-2 USC, and 7-0 Washington. Teams aren't losing into bad teams, aren't getting themselves eliminated. The quality is at the top. Okay, that quality is as good as the quality in the top of the SEC with Georgia, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss, right? And their middle teams are probably better in the same range as the middle teams. It's pretty close. And then you have, let's see, you've got the Big 12, who really have 2 really quality teams and then a couple little step down. So I think the Pac-12 is better than that. And the Big 10, you have 3 teams, and that's really it. Right. And the Pac-12 is better at that at the top. And then the ACC, you've got three teams: Florida, Louisville, North Carolina. But I think the Pac-12 teams are all better than those teams, except for Florida State. So yeah, I think that I think at the top of the Power Fives, they're the best. They're the best conference. They have the most interesting, exciting teams, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to just cover that. We're going to cover the games that were. Takes us way more time than it'll be the games to be. If we get an opportunity this week, we will do a little update on our teams we picked and do the review. But this is my favorite thing to record, is this part of it anyway. So
Yeah, I feel like this is the meat. This is really, we can get into all the stuff as we did tonight, which is good. So yeah, great
Yeah.
week 8, so fun. I'm excited for next week. We'll get into it.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.